Welcome back to CFB Enthusiasts, guys. My name is Jimmy. Today, I want to give out some of my takeaways from week one. This might be a weekly thing, it might not be. We'll see how it goes. But I feel like for week one, I have a lot of opinions and a lot of thoughts. So, we're going to do a quick recap of the slate that we saw on Saturday. There's still some games that have to be played on Sunday: South Carolina, Virginia Tech, and then Notre Dame, Miami, and then the Monday night game, TCU, North Carolina. But I feel like with the games we had, there is a lot to talk about. So I just kind of want to go ahead and go deep into how I felt about the weekend. So it was great for college football to have these huge non-conference games with big brands, right? You got Texas and Ohio State. You got Alabama and Florida State. You have LSU and Clemson, like massive games with big brands. Those are like six of the top 10, 15 brands in college football, right? And they're playing each other week one, like hitting the ground running. And I absolutely love that for the sport. Um, let's get into this thing. One of my first takeaways from Saturday, we'll start with the Texas Ohio State game. Now, Ohio State offensively will get better. It wasn't smooth sailing for Julian Sain in that offense. But one thing that Ryan Day did was put Sain in favorable positions to be successful. I talked about this a little bit in my previous video with the actual game recap. I said that Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, their coaching staff, put Julian Sain in advantageous situations in order for him to not necessarily succeed, but to not lose them the game. Julian Sain didn't make many mistakes. I mean, he did what he needed to do in the ball game to, keep drives going or get out of their own end zone or whatever the case might be. He didn't light the world on fire, sure, but he didn't lose them the game. And I attribute that to the play calling. I attributed that to the talent he has around him. And it's not gonna look like this at the end of the season. Julian Sain will get better. He did make a couple throws that really impressed me. I think there was one throw where they were backed up and Colin Simmons was coming right after him. And he threw the ball to Carnell Tate on a third down conversion on the sideline. I was like, okay, that's an impressive ball. I was like, okay, you got that. So you saw some flashes here and there of what he could potentially do. So I think this offense will get better as the season goes along. They'll have a couple tune-up games here in the next couple weeks before they go to Washington, I believe. Him and Jeremiah Smith will get on the same page. Him and Carnell Tate will get on the same page. Obviously, those two Jeremiah Smith drops is an anomaly. You probably won't see him drop two more passes the rest of the season, if I'm being honest with you. So there are even a couple things, that the supporting cast did that didn't help Julian Sain out. The drops by Smith, Max Clare dropped one on the sideline. So I think they'll be better there. The run game does kind of concern me a little bit. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to run the ball really effectively this season. We're going to see. They played the league defense in Texas, but C.J. Donaldson and James Peoples are going to have to give them a little bit more production to keep that balance, to keep that offense balanced. But their defense is elite once again, as we saw. They Fletcher, Quinn Ewers, Matt Patricia was phenomenal, bringing disguises and just had Arch looking lost for some portions of the game. And their secondary really locked up. I think a huge reason why Texas didn't find any success was because Matthews and Caleb Downs, Igbinosun, they all had really great games. The Styles brothers, they had really good games. And even the front for Ohio State played pretty well. So they're going to have another elite defense. They obviously have the talent on offense. I think it's going to start coming together as the season goes along, have a couple tune-up games, and they'll be just fine. They'll be in the mix once again. On Texas's side, I think they need to take September very seriously from the standpoint of, yes, they're going to beat San Jose State and UTEP and Sam Houston. They're going to run through those teams, no problem. What I'm talking about is this is the time to work out the kinks in your offense with Arch and these receivers especially, and even the offensive line. The offensive line protected Arch pretty well. They played a great game, not a great game, a really good game overall for Texas to win. There's a couple, pre-snap stuff with Brandon Baker, and even the last offensive play when he missed the assignment on the block. But other than that, I think the offensive line played pretty well. This is going to be the time for Arch to really gain some rhythm and consistency with his receivers. With Wingo, him and Arch were totally out of sync. And, I mean, most of it was attributed to Arch not putting the ball on Wingo a couple of times. But I think Wingo and DeAndre Moore and those guys, they're just going to have to make plays for Arch right now. Shout out to Parker Livingstone, who made a couple of plays. Jack Endries made a couple of really nice plays that I liked. So I think they're just going to need to work out the kinks of this offense, because it kind of sucks again that it's funny that Steve Sarkisian's an offensive guy, but the offense is the weakest link on the entire team. The defense is elite once again. We saw that. And the special teams is coming on for Texas. The special teams last year was another weak point for Texas. But this year, it's looking like a strong suit. Now, we didn't see any field goals or anything, but Burmeister's punting was really good. Our kickoff coverage was really good. So I think the offense is going to need to take a step forward for us to get to where we want to get to. Not I think, I know they're going to need to take a step forward for Texas to get to where they want to get to. Other than that, there are some silver linings. You had Parker Livingstone, Grayson Littleton, who are young guys who made huge plays today. Or yesterday, I should say. So I think Texas will be fine. No one will care what Arch does in these next 3 games. The next game where anyone cares or it's any type of competition is the Florida game. And guess what? That's on the road on October 4th, I believe. So we have 3 games against nobodies, 3 tune-up games, a bye week, and then right back on the road at Florida. So let's go to Alabama, Florida State. Wow. I was not expecting that. FSU wins 31-17, and it's not even that they won, it's the way that they won. They absolutely dominated Alabama along the lines of scrimmage. And you would think with Parker Brailsford and Caden Proctor on offensive line for Bama, you would think that wouldn't happen. You wouldn't think in a million years that wouldn't happen. But Florida State pushed him around, got to Ty Simpson a lot, rolled him out of the pocket a lot. Now, Ty Simpson is a lot more athletic than I thought he was, so props to him, but he was made uncomfortable all game long. And that's due to Florida State's defense, pushing Alabama around in the front 4, front 7, making play after play. And on the flip side, boy, did Tommy Castellanos back up his words. He said, I don't really see them guarding me. I don't see Nick Saban on the other side of that field. He can't save them. And what did he come out and do? He had 78 rushing yards, and then FSU had 236 rushing yards as a team. Tommy Castellanos looks like Kyler Murray running around. Bama can't stop the run game. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad. So shout out to Tommy Castellanos, because I know most of the college football world clowned him when we're like, bro, what? Like, y'all aren't messing with Bama. I know most of us said that. And look what happened. He backed it up. So props to him. If you can talk shit and you back it up with your play, I don't have no problem. And I feel like no one else should have a problem either. If you can talk your shit, but you back it up, you get no word from me, man. There's a different energy with Florida State. There's a different energy with Florida State, and I like it. Last year, they didn't have that energy. They didn't have that spark, which contributed to their 2-10 season. They didn't have that effort level that we saw on Saturday. Now maybe it's like a week one thing and they're at home and it's against Bama, so they're high flying and all these things, and that energy level might come down a little bit when you're playing, I don't know, Wake Forest or NC State or Virginia, whoever else they got on their schedule. But I do think this is going to help them go a long way to having a successful season this year. I think Tommy Castellanos and Gus Malzahn is a really good pairing. Now we see when Gus Malzahn is effective, the types of quarterbacks that he has. Quarterbacks that can run around, a physical offense with a physical O-line, a big O-line, a nice running game. This is where Gus Malzahn is at his best as a coach, right? And this looks like it's going to be a really good pairing. I would love to see the passing game develop a little bit more as the season goes along. We shall see. In order for Florida State to take, another step to being a better team. But for what I saw on Saturday, I really liked what I saw. That energy, that culture is changing, and it's a new day at Florida State, I think. So shout out to Mike Norvell, Gus Malzahn, Tommy Castellanos. Y'all do y'all's thing. Kalen DeBoer. It's going to be time to start having these conversations with Kalen DeBoer sooner rather than later if this keeps on happening. Now, I think Saban only lost to 4 unranked teams his whole career at Bama. Kalen DeBoer has lost to more unranked teams in this little over a year of him being at Bama than Nick Saban did his entire career at Bama. That's not going to fly in Tuscaloosa. Now, it's one thing if you were losing to LSU or Georgia or now in this case Texas. That hasn't been happening with Kalen DeBoer at Bama so far. He's lost to Vanderbilt. He lost to the worst Oklahoma team we've seen in so long, 25 plus years. The worst Oklahoma team we've seen at least 25 plus years. He lost to him. Lost to a Michigan team who had a down year last year in the bowl game. And now Florida State team who's coming off 2-10, who's overhauled their entire roster and their entire coaching staff. And you lost by 2 scores. It wasn't really close after the first quarter. After the first drive, they couldn't run the ball. Bama. They couldn't run the ball. I think they had, let's see here, they had 54 rushing yards on their first drive, and they finished with 89 total rushing yards. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable to Alabama. So Kalen DeBoer is not going to keep getting away with this. I'm not saying he's going to be on the hot seat or anything like that, but if this continues, the rumblings and the noise will get louder and louder and louder in Tuscaloosa. I'm just going to leave it at that. LSU impressed me last night. I think this might be the most complete team that Brian Kelly has had at LSU. Those Jaden Daniel years, they had a really good offense. Remember, they had Malik Neighbors and they had Mason Taylor, and they ended up having Brian Thomas Jr. and then Kyron Lacey came into the fold. They were elite offensively. They had no problem offensively. The problem with LSU then was the defense wasn't up to par, and the situational game plan, the situational play calling wasn't up to par. Now, I know it's one game, but LSU looked very buttoned up when it came to situational play calling in this game. They looked very buttoned up when it came to stopping what I think is going to be the best offense in college football this year. At least the best passing game in college football this year in Clemson. Held them to 10 points. They pressured Kate Klubnik. Clemson couldn't run the ball. Now, I think that's attributed to Clemson's lack of talent in the running back room, but also we can give LSU their credit. We can give their front seven credit with Perkins and the Weeks brothers and their D-line punishing Clemson. Klubnik was running for his life. We can also give credit to the secondary, the transfer from Virginia Tech. His name is blanking on me right now, but he was a big part of the game. He had the interception. Their secondary looks back to LSU standard. I think LSU is going to be pretty good this year. I think they are. They might be a little bit better than I thought, actually. So we're going to see. Clemson, on the other hand, I think they will be fine. Hopefully, Antonio Williams is okay. He left the game with what we think is a hamstring injury. We're going to hear more about it as the week goes along. He didn't really have an impact. Wesco and Moore didn't really have too much of an impact. I think Clemson will be fine, though. Their defense made plays to where I'm like, okay, they're going to be really good. Avion Terrell is going to be really good. And their front seven's really good as well. But I think LSU just made a couple more plays than what Clemson could make. The Pac-12 After Dark matchup, Utah and UCLA. Old Pac-12 matchup. Utah might be back. That's my biggest segue from that. They had 287 rush yards, and Devon Dampier had 300 total yards of offense and 3 touchdowns. And they beat up UCLA. UCLA doesn't have like the greatest trench play, but they beat them up real bad. Really bad. Both sides of scrimmage. And they have, the thing about Utah, they just get it done, man. They have guys playing offense and defense. They're just so physical, and I love it. Barring injury last year, I think they would have been really good once again, but you know, the Cam Rising injury and the whole bunch of injuries they had on their team last year just derailed their season. But if they can stay healthy this year and tap into this identity that they have now, this New Mexico takeover, I think they're going to be really good in the Big 12. And I think it's really interesting, too, with Utah because it's like a contrast of styles. Utah is a really physical team. They're not going to pass the ball that much. They're not that great passing the ball. That's a concern for me. But they're going to be very physical both sides of the ball. They're going to beat you down. But you also have teams like that are the complete opposite when it comes to play style. Kansas State's in the toilet. I'm not sure what's going on in Kansas State. I don't think Dylan Edwards was that much of a difference for them to barely be beating North Dakota. Escaping with a win versus North Dakota. Now, there seems like there's bigger issues there at Kansas State. I don't know if it's a lack of focus from the Ireland trip. I don't know if it's lack of focus from the Avery Johnson situation with his family. I don't know. But Kansas State has not looked good so far. And they were my preseason Big 12 champ. They haven't looked good. It seems like the Big 12 is going to be another crapshoot again. I don't think Arizona State's going to go back-to-back Big 12 champs. I honestly think there's a higher chance of us seeing 2 brand new teams in the Big 12 title game. But we're going to see, man. I really like what I saw from Utah. UCLA, on the other hand, and Nico Iamaleava, I mean, can't say I'm surprised. They're not a good team overall. And they dropped Nico into the mix, which he's not a ceiling raiser. I mean, he might raise your floor a little bit, but your ceiling, he's not going to raise your ceiling. We saw that last night. He threw for 50%, threw a pick, didn't look too comfortable out there passing. He ran pretty well, but other than that, nothing to write home about really with UCLA. But those are some of my thoughts, some of my takeaways from Week 1 and those matchups. Can't wait for these Sunday night matchups and the Monday night matchup, TCU, North Carolina. So there's going to be a lot more to talk about as the week goes along. But y'all stay tuned for our Week 2 preview and prediction, which will be coming later this upcoming week. So y'all stay tuned with that. But other than that, this is Jimmy with CFB Enthusiasts. I'm out. Peace.